Welcome to the next installment of the Miami Group Sierra Club Virtual Backpack Series. Welcome to the next edition of the Miami Group webinars. Tonight we're trying something a little bit different. We're going to do a virtual deep dive on one of our favorite backpacking destinations, Panthertown Valley in North Carolina. Our hope is that we can actually give you enough information in this presentation that you could actually plan your own trip if you desire to do so. Now, of course, if you don't, then remember you're always welcome to join one of the Sierra Club outings. This is one of the places we usually go to at least once a year. So if you see it out there once things reopen and find this interesting, please join us. But again, our hope is that there's going to be enough content here that you would be able to actually plan a trip down there yourself. So let's get into the topic of the evening, Panthertown Valley, otherwise known as the Yosemite of the East. First, I'd like to presenters or co-presenters to introduce themselves. Amelia, can you start us off?
Sure. My name's Amelia Mengen. I've been backpacking for about 20, 30 years and have made several trips to Panthertown, and it is a very special place.
Thank you, Amelia. Wayne? Is Wayne still with us? Okay, while we're waiting for Wayne, my name is Barry Randall. My trail name is Aardvark. I've been backpacking for let's just say a long time, and been Panthertown Valley a number of times. Currently, I am the outings chairperson of the Sierra Club Miami Group. Is Wayne back with us yet?
I am back. Sorry about that. Having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
I've been backpacking about 10 years and camping other than that longer. But anytime I can get out, I like to backpack. So.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Wayne. We have a couple of other folks that have joined us to help out. I don't have their smiling faces up here, but Nancy, can you introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. My name is Nancy Bull, also known as Crunch. That's my trail name. I've been camping and hiking for as long as I can remember, maybe longer than I've been walking even, and backpacking for the last 15 plus years. I also lead adventure trips to different places, really all around the world through my company, Summit Trek and Travel.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And last but not least, Brian, you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure, sorry. Wasn't ready with the mute button. Really just looking forward to the presentation. My name is Brian Wolfe. I'm a part owner at Roads, Rivers, and Trails, and happy to always help where I can with the Sierra Club presentations and backpacking classes, and look forward to getting those back going and just getting more people outside. So thanks for having me.
Great. Yeah, both Roads, River, and Trails and Summit have been great partners for Sierra Club in these presentations, so we appreciate all their help. Okay, just a quick comment on Leave No Trace. The reason I'm throwing this up there as a reminder is simply that Panthertown is one of those beautiful places, a real gem, but it's one of those places that's just being loved to death. And it does get just a lot of traffic, a lot of people, which doesn't diminish its value as a destination. Still encourage people to go there. But with the increase in traffic, and particularly with the pandemic, more people are getting out, more people are trying their hand at backpacking and camping. And a lot of those people obviously, or not obviously, but a lot of those people don't really always act in the most responsible manner. And so it's important for all of us to practice the Leave No Trace. And I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir with this group. I doubt that any of you are the people who leave beer cans in the fire ring. But as the responsible people who understand Leave No Trace, I see it that we have a little more responsibility, one, to speak up if we see something that behavior of others that just is inconsistent with leave no trace. So if we see people cutting down live trees or leaving trash, as uncomfortable it is, it's important for us to speak up and help educate them as to how to experience the outdoors responsibly, and do what we can to help keep these places clean, and carry that extra trash bag and try and carry out those beer cans, or maybe clean out a fire pit or something like that when we get the opportunity. So enough on leave no trace. Let's go to the next slide. So a little bit about Panthertown Valley. It's about 6,000 acre backcountry recreation area in the Nantahala National Forest. It's in western North Carolina. It's on the Eastern Continental Divide between Smoky Mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains. We'll see it on a map here in a few minutes, a larger scale map. This trail map that's pictured here is probably the best trail map that I've found for the area. And towards the end of the presentation, we have a slide on resources, and there's a link where you can get this map, or it is available in some of the souvenir shop kind of places that are down in the area. Panthertown Valley just has a wonderful diversity of flora and fauna. It's the headwaters of the Tuckasegee River. It has a rare Appalachian mountain bog. It's dozens of waterfalls, which is what makes it one of the so attractive for so many people to come visit. It's part of the bonus to feat Panthertown Black Bear Sanctuary as well. And we'll talk a little bit more, but there can be bear activity down there. I will say that none of our trips have we ever had a problem with bears. Okay, we're going to start off here with just a quick poll. We're just curious, based on what have heard here, what would you think is the best time of year to visit Panthertown Valley? And let's see, Nancy, can you launch the poll? There we go. So if you could just, you can click any of these that you think are applicable and what you think you might expect down in this area. Give people a couple of minutes there to finish up.
About halfway there, Barry.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see the results or not, but
yeah, I actually
can.
Oh,
okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm really happy no one has picked the last box so far.
While we're waiting for people to finish the poll, I see a question did pop up from Debbie about any good caves to explore there. I'm not aware of any actual caving opportunities in that area or in Panthertown Valley itself. There may be some rock shelter kinds of things, and although I've never been rock climbing down there, I understand there's some rock climbing opportunities. But I'm not aware of any actual caving. Okay, so are the results in? I think they are. It's interesting. So a lot of votes for fall and springtime, summer and winter. Okay, interesting. Clear that out. Now you want to go to the next slide, Nancy? So obviously a trick question, obviously just kind of leading you on that actually there is no bad time to visit Panthertown. We have been there in all seasons, and it's just gorgeous anytime. It's interesting that in our poll, so few people picked summer, because I would say that's probably the most popular time for people to visit. Personally, and for our groups, we typically don't go a lot in the summer. But there are a lot of great swimming hole, rock slide kind of water kind of features there that a lot of people enjoy. And so in the summer, you'll often see youth groups, you know, Boy Scouts and that sort of thing out there because the water is very enjoyable, obviously, in the summer. That said, though, really fall is beautiful with the colors. Spring is beautiful with the flowers, a lot of rhododendron down there as well. And then winter is just, it's beautiful. And plus, you know, you get the place pretty much all to yourself in the winter. So any of those times are great. Okay. So just some of the basics here. To the left there, you can see the map of the drive down there. So it is from Cincinnati. It's a 6.5 hour drive. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but we typically plan our trips for at least 3 days, you know, a long weekend, for example, mainly because that is, you know, a long drive just for one overnight. And it does work out well because you can, depending on how many stops you have along the way, of course, you can get there, you know, mid-afternoon. And there are a number of campsites that are within a 1 to 2 mile hike in from the trailheads. So it works out well that you can get there middle afternoon, you can hike in, still have plenty of time to set up camp, make dinner, and that sort of thing. So it does work out reasonably well for at least a 3-day trip. It is only primitive camping. There's no privies, there's no potable water. There's lots of water, so you don't have to worry about that. But you obviously have to treat it. It's currently managed by the Forest Service. It hasn't been managed that long by the Forest Service. So some of the trails are official Forest Service trails, and some are kind of legacy trails that are left over from when it was private. But the Forest Service rules apply. Groups are limited to no more than 12 per site. No camping within 50 feet of the water. There are some trails that allow mountain bikes and horses, but the hiking trails do not. And there is no permit required, which is nice. You just show up. Okay. Next slide. So this is a blow up of that same map of the southern section. This is by far and away the most popular area. And so this is going to see a lot more activity than that northern section. And there's 2 main trailheads, one on the east and one on the west in this section, and we'll talk about each of those separately. If there is bear activity, and it's generally advertised either on the Forest Service or the Friends of Panthertown website, then it's generally down in this area because, again, this gets most of the human traffic, and of course it's that human traffic and the food that they bring with them that attracts the bears. So if there are bear warnings or you are concerned about that, the northern section is probably the best bet. It does get a little wild up there. There was one trip when we were trying to get to something in the northern section called the Bonus Defeat, which is kind of a little canyon, if you will, with a stream through it. And I don't know, Wayne, do you remember that trip very well? All I remember is that the trail got super wild and difficult to follow and swampy, and we finally gave up and I think went home. Do I remember that right? You there, Wayne?
Yeah, you remember that right.
Oh, okay.
Barry.
Amelia, were you on that trip too?
Yeah, it also
Okay.
got real buggy too.
Yeah.
Along with the dampness and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So again, northern section is a little wilder. This area down here is a little more open and more frequented. Okay. You want to go to the next slide? Okay. So I've included the directions to the trailheads here. You can see on the little map inset, there's the 3 major trailheads, the 2 in the southern section that were on the previous map, and then that one up there that's in the more northern section called Rattlesnake Knob. So down in the southern section, there's Salt Rock Gap and Cold Mountain Gap, which are the 2 that we have typically used on most of our trips. We'll talk about one trip we did to the northern section. But basically, probably the best bet is to set your GPS to either Glenville or Lake Toxaway, depending on whether you're going in from the east or the west. Going in from on the western side, you'd set your GPS for Glenville. On the eastern side, Lake Toxaway. It'll bring you in from different directions, and then just follow these directions that are written on this slide. And it's pretty easy to find those trailheads. You do have some dirt and gravel roads to get back for ways to those trailheads, but if you follow these directions, you should have no trouble finding it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a look at these different trailheads one at a time. So this is the Salt Rock Gap. So again, it's in the southern section on the western side. And there's a couple of nice campsites, as you can see. They're marked on the map here. Within less than 2 miles, probably more like a mile from that trailhead. So again, an easy hike in if you arrive late afternoon. I will say, we've marked the, I'm sorry. Do you have something, Wayne?
No.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard somebody. So marked the campsites on this map, but we didn't establish these locations by GPS or anything like that. So they're based on memory of when we were there. So they might be a little bit off, but they're pretty close. So if you come in from Salt Rock Gap, you do have the option of hiking actually past a couple of waterfalls on the way in. You can see Wilderness Falls and Frolic-Town Falls. So if you're willing to take a little bit of detour, it can be a nice hike in past those waterfalls if you want to kind of check things out, on the way in. So that's kind of fun. That is a little more rough and overgrown kind of trail. The main trail that goes in past that Salt Rock marking there, that's actually an old road bed. So that's a very easy, wide trail. You can see that there is a shelter there. That's, again, an easy hike in. There's also some camping down there by the Great Wall. We'll talk about that. And then up there to the northern section, there's an area called the Tree Plantation that has some nice sites as well. So let's talk about those a little bit to give you an idea of what you might be heading in for. You want to go to the next slide? So this is a couple of pictures of that Great Wall area. So you can see the shelter that we've talked about. It's pretty large and spacious. I don't know, Amelia or Wayne, would you care to guess how many people that shelter might accommodate?
Oh boy, I bet 20.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good size. Now it is a fairly short hike in, like I was saying, so it's a pretty popular destination. And at least a couple of times when we've gone down there, we've actually found it occupied. However, along kind of the base of the Great Wall there that you can see in the picture to the right, which is actually a very impressive spot, there's some camping there. You can actually see a tent down in that lower right-hand corner. So there's some nice open camping areas in there. So if you head into this area, odds are pretty good that you're going to find someplace suitable to camp. There is a water crossing to get to those sites. I don't recall ever being able to rock hop that crossing. I think we always had to do it feet wet. Amelia or Wayne, do you recall?
I think I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So plan on that if you're headed for this area. You probably will need your water shoes. Okay. All right. So this is that other area that I mentioned, the tree plantation. So this is actually an old Christmas tree farm back when this was private property that was never harvested. So all these trees just grew up. But what it did was just create this really nice, very open, very flat area with, I don't know, at least a half a dozen different fire rings scattered out through it. So different kind of camping areas. And I just highlight this one in case you do have a group and you want to be pretty sure of finding a campsite. I don't think I've ever seen this area, anywhere near full. So it's a pretty safe bet that you would find something suitable here. Okay. All right. So let's flip over to the eastern side. This is the Cold Mountain Trailhead. You come into this through the town of Lake Toxaway on the eastern side. So usually a GPS is going to bring you in kind of alongside Asheville through a town of Brevard to this trailhead. And actually Brevard, even though it's probably an hour away, is a very nice little town that has some nice restaurants. It refresh my memory. Wayne, what's the name of the barbecue place?
Hog Wild.
Hog Wild, that's what it is, yeah. Hog Wild Barbecue. So if you did come in this way and you want to stop for food on the way in or out in Brevard, check out Hog Wild Barbecue. So coming in from the east, Schoolhouse Falls, which is on the map here, is a very popular destination, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The main trail going in, which is the Panthertown Valley Trail, is an old roadbed as well, so it's a nice, easy hike. Now on this side, you might be tempted to hike in past a couple of falls that you see here, Max Falls and Pothole Falls, right? Just a word of warning that trail is exceedingly rough and treacherous. It kind of hangs over that creek there, and very difficult to navigate that one with a pack on. You're literally hanging on to some roots at different places and trying to, crawl along this crumbling trail. So wouldn't necessarily recommend that with a backpack as, a way in, unlike the other entrance we looked at, where there were a couple of good falls on the way. Down a little bit further south, you'll see Greenland Creek Falls. You could hike that on the way in, but we usually save that when we do a circuit route that we'll talk about in a little bit here. But that falls is actually one of our favorites. It's really a great spot. So, okay, I think that's that. Let's flip to the next slide. So this is Schoolhouse Falls, one of those camping sites. You can see why it's so popular. You can the picture on the right, from the campsite, you can see the falls, right? They're just right there in front of you. And if you're one of these people that likes to, camp near falls and just hear that falling water all night, that kind of soothing, relaxing sound, that's the place. Again, pretty popular, so you're going to want to watch the season and day of the week that you try and get there. It also means that you're going to get a fair number of people who are kind of day hiking in just to take a look at the falls. So even if you're camping there, you can expect a few visitors coming in occasionally. Okay. You can also kind of walk behind those falls, which was the picture on the left there, which is kind of cool. You can go back down there and go behind the falls. If you do that, though, just be respectful of the fact that there's, some pretty fragile lichen and moss and ferns and things that grow back in that environment. So just be careful what you step on. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about next is a loop hike that one can take, and you could start anywhere from all of these different places that we've talked about that can be destination campsites, and do this 10-mile loop that takes you through some of the highlights of the southern section of Panthertown. What we have often done, and seems to work out well, although there's a lot of different ways to do this, is we'll hike in base camp in one of these areas that we talked about, or a couple of more. There are several other options. And then day hike, or just hike with a day pack, this 10-mile loop or some variation of it, back to our base camp, spend the night, and then hike out the next morning. That makes a nice 3-day trip if you do it that way. So they show this trail as being more difficult. There's a couple places where there's a steep climb, but I don't think most people would consider it overly difficult. It's 10 miles if you include a couple of out and backs to different places. The trail can be kind of rough. Again, there's a climb there. Gets up to just under 4,000 feet on Green Mountain there. And as you can see, it gains 1,000 feet of elevation. List the trails that you use there. It's a loop with a couple of out and backs. And like I said, you could start anywhere on this. The directions that we've included in this pitch, the kind of mileage waypoints, are taken from the Cold Mountain Trailhead, but you can do this hike from really anywhere on the circle. So flip to the next page, and I think we'll see that. So here's that map, and with the arrows drawn in to kind of show the loop. If you were to start over somewhere in that Cold Mountain Gap area and start doing a counterclockwise hike, you'd come up there past Schoolhouse Falls, which is a very short out and back, down Panthertown Valley Trail, and then you'd continue down there. You can see you pass Burrell Falls. There's another out and back kind of over there on the western side by the shelter, where you can go out and hit the Wilderness Falls and Frolic Falls if you haven't already hit those on the way in. And you can come back down south of the Great Wall there. And then you got that big climb up Green Mountain. And then another out and back to the west there, where you go to the Green Mountain overlook, where that star is. And if you do that, then you'd hike down the Big Green Trail back down towards Greenland Falls, another little out and back, but well worth it. And then you'd be back up in the Cold Mountain Gap. So again, nice loop, 10 miles total if you did everything I just described. And it hits really most of the high points of the southern part. Okay, I'm gonna flip to the next. And we won't go through this one, but this is just a list of mileage points and some of the highlights. If you do want to do this trip, you might print this out, take it along with you. Okay, go to the next slide. So just if you were to do that trip, a few things you'd see along the way. Schoolhouse Falls, we've already talked a bit. There's a place called Sandbar Pool that it looks like a beach. You can see in the picture, it actually does. And I've been there in the summer when there's actually people out lying on the sand in their swimsuits and beach towels, just like you would see on any beach. So it's a really pretty little spot to just hang out. Picture on the right is Burrell Falls. Kind of a not a steep, it's a really kind of gradual fall. I think we have seen one time some people doing rock sliding down those falls. Wayne or Amelia, do you remember that? I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a spot to do that, but I seem to recall seeing somebody do that.
I did see that.
Yeah. I'm not sure. There's a better spot that we'll talk about, but So that's some of the sites. Next slide. If we keep going, you would come to Frolicktown Falls and over on the left, and then Wilderness Falls over there on the right. These are not big falls, but they're just pretty little spots. Those are worth, hiking by and taking a few pictures and hanging out a few minutes. The one in the middle bottom is Greenland Creek Falls, which is a taller multi-step waterfall, as you can see. And that, like I said, is one of our favorites. That is a really nice place to just hang out, sun yourself on the rocks if the weather permits, maybe even go in the water if the weather permits. That one, I think, is probably one of our favorites. And then up above there, that, whoops, well, this picture shows it as well. This is the Green Mountain overlook that side trail takes you to. And it's a very, very pretty view down. You're basically looking down into the valley where that shelter is. And it's a very pretty spot. Okay, so do we have any questions in the chat?
I see a few in there, Barry.
Okay, let me
So
pull it up here and see what we got.
yeah, the first one I noticed is Becky's asking who the bathing beauty was.
That had to be Amelia.
Had to be Amelia.
Yeah, and I bet Becky knew that, didn't you?
And the second question is, where's your base camp in this route? That was back a little way, so I'm not sure. I guess that would be on the loop.
Yeah, can you flip back to that loop slide and let's take another look at that. The map, the map with the arrows on it.
I think that's where I am. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Took a moment to refresh for me.
Gotcha.
Okay. So if you were planning to do this, you have a couple of choices for your base camp. And I don't know if you can highlight this as I talk, Nancy, but that shelter area and the base of the Great Wall, that's a very common destination that's right on this loop. So you could hike in the afternoon from Salt Rock Gap, set up your base camp, use the shelter or set up at the base of the wall there, and then the next day do this loop. So an example, if you were doing a weekend trip, you could come in on a Friday, set up base camp Friday night. Saturday, you could hike this whole loop and probably more if you wanted to. Back to your base camp. Sunday morning, you hike back out, you drive home. So that's kind of a classic trip. Certainly Schoolhouse Falls is another great option as far as a base camp that's right on this loop. Again, just have to be a little wary that it's a popular one. So you should probably have a plan B. I think later on we'll show a couple of other campsites that are a little bit north of Schoolhouse Falls that actually are a plan B. And the tree plantation, which is kind of there, I don't know if you can kind of highlight north of Granny Burrell Falls there, kind of where that arrow is actually pointing down on the loop, right in that area. Yeah, yeah, right in there is that tree plantation. So that's another great base camp area. You can hike in, base camp there, and it's right on the loop. Okay. Hopefully I answer your question. If not, when we unmute at the end, jump in and we'll try better. Actually, Amelia and Wayne, do you remember any other great spots, kind of along that loop?
Not me.
Okay.
It seems like every spot is a great spot along
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. I see a couple other questions here. How bad are the snakes? We've never had any problem with snakes. Actually, later in this pitch, though, you'll see a picture of a snake. So there are snakes, but obviously that's anywhere you go in the mountains, you're going to potentially run into snakes. The one that that shows up in a picture is actually a water snake. But I would not characterize snakes as a problem in this area. The next question is about ticks. I've certainly never had a problem with ticks here. I think it depends on the season you go, obviously. Late spring, summer, you're going to have a lot more, and fall, you're going to have a lot more tick activity. I've never experienced what I would call a problem. I have been places where ticks were obnoxious. This is not one of them. So Amelia, Wayne, any thoughts about snakes or ticks?
I agree
Well,
with what you said, Barry.
not enough of either to worry about.
Yeah. Okay. Pam asked, backpacking rule of thumb, what do you bring for 3 days? Weight recommendation. Wow. That's almost an entire presentation on its own.
Kind of sounds like our backpacking class.
It really does. It really does. I don't know how to succinctly answer that question. I mean, most people we backpack with try and keep their base weight, that's the weight without the consumables, water or food or fuel, under, say, 20 pounds. That actually takes some work to do that. And that's nowhere near even ultralight. That's maybe kind of lightweight. And then, of course, your food and fuel for 3 days. Water, you only need to carry a little bit of water with you in this area, since there's just so much flowing water as long as you treat it. So, like I said, we could do a whole presentation on pack weight. When I first started section hiking the AT, I was stupid enough, or not stupid, ignorant enough, is that the right word, to have a 45-pound pack. But certainly these days, even with food and fuel, try and keep it under 30 pounds. So I don't know, we got Brian on the phone. Maybe Brian has a good answer to that question. Brian, what do you have, like a recommended weight for a 3-day trip?
I might have to unmute him.
Oh, he might still be muted. Okay, we'll ask him again when we get to the end. There's another question here from, let's see, Jennifer asked this one about camping in designated. There actually are no designated campsites. Forest Service rules apply, and Forest Service rules are more about how far away you have to be from water and a trail and that sort of thing. However, certainly leave no trace best practice is use established campsites when you're in an area like this. I say in an area like this because there are areas out west where you try and disperse the camping and you try to make it look like no one was ever there. But in areas like this that are heavily used, the general prevailing desire is that people reuse the same sites over and over again. So yes, you should look for an established site with an established fire ring in these kind of areas. Is it safe to leave your gear in a base camp? Theft. Well, we have certainly never had a problem with any theft. I feel perfectly comfortable leaving some, fairly expensive gear, I guess, in a campsite. Does that mean there's no theft? No, I'd be more concerned about theft from a car personally, just because I guess I just believe most thieves are lazy. They're not going to hike in 2 miles to steal my stuff, but they will steal it out of my car. So I guess, yes, we've always been perfectly comfortable leaving our gear in a base camp. Okay, let's see. Kate, I guess is how you pronounce it. I try to keep my base weight under 15. Good for you. That's actually an admirable goal. And the food is about 1.5 pounds a day. That actually is a good rule of thumb that I've run across before. Thank you for throwing that in. Let's see, Chuck asked about hanging gear and animals, and yes, this is an area where there are critters. We mentioned bears, but other sorts of critters as well. So yes, you should either hang your food or bring a bear canister or some other critter-proof mechanism for your food. So yes, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Chuck. Okay, I think maybe I hit them all. Did you? Anyone else see any questions I missed? Okay.
I think you
All
got
right.
them all, Barry. Thanks.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but at the end, we'll try and just open things up, let people either continue to throw questions in the chat or just ask them, unmute and ask them. Okay. So another trip that we've done that's been pretty interesting. This is in that northern section. It's not all the way up to the Rattlesnake trailhead. This is kind of halfway up the eastern side, and it's called the West Forkway trailhead. It's a smaller trailhead that comes in, oddly enough, to the West Forkway Trail. But there's a couple of nice campsites along here. One of them is almost immediately in from the trailhead. The one that we like a little bit better is down by Dismal Falls. So it's the one that's kind of in the center of this map. And this is a much less visited area. We planned a trip here one time when there was warning of bear activity in that southern section, particularly around that shelter area. So we thought, well, let's go up north where there's fewer people and fewer bears. And this was a nice trip. And it does allow you to hike down to this, the area that's to the left on this picture, the Devil's Elbow area. This is a very nice trail that has a number of beautiful waterfalls along it that we'll talk about here in another segment we're going to do in a minute. So this makes a nice trip to, again, base camp at Dismal Falls there, and then day hike down to the Devil's Elbow region and kind of enjoy that whole area. Okay, flip to the next slide. Okay, so that's a picture of Dismal Falls, which you can see is a pretty good sized waterfall, multiple levels. It's a very steep climb to get up and then back down to these falls. So this is plan on earning this one. This one is a tough hike in to get to these falls. And the little inset picture down to the left is just that campsite. So it's a nice open campsite. Not right by the falls. You cannot see the falls from this campsite. Again, it's a pretty strenuous hike up and down to get to these falls. Wayne or Amelia, do you remember that at all? It was a pretty tough scramble, as I recall, to get back to these falls.
Yeah, there's even one part where there's a rope that you kind of have to use the rope to help yourself climb up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was glad I wasn't carrying a pack for sure.
Yeah. So that's a good one for after you've set up camp, go and visit this place. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this was kind of a fun trip that we did. That was kind of a spur of the moment thing and very, very different. At least for us, we had never done anything like this. And this was a river walk, or literally hiking the river. And what we did is we hiked via the trail up to that Red Butt Falls that's at the very top of this map. I've always wondered how the name Red Butt Falls came about, but I've never heard a story about that. But then we basically just hiked upstream from Red Butt Falls to Elbow Falls to Riding Ford Falls to Jawbone Falls to Wardens Falls. So basically just from the top of this map down the creek, well, you took a wrong turn there, but down to Warden Falls. And you could actually walk the river the whole way, at least at the height that the river was when we were there. climbing these falls along the way. And you could stop and swim and sun and rock slide along the way. So obviously this is something you'd only do weather permitting, but we happen to be there. You remember Wayne or Amelia? I think that was a spring trip. I'm pretty sure it was spring because I remember flowers, but but it was warm spring day, so it made this possible. There is a campsite actually. Oops, if you want to flip back for a second, Nancy. You can see in the middle of the picture there, at the foot of Jawbone Falls, there is a campsite. I've never actually stayed in that campsite, but it's a beautiful spot. It's on this small pond lake at the foot of Jawbone Falls, similar in a way to the way Schoolhouse Falls is set up with that campsite. So that would be kind of a cool destination campsite if you did want to do something along this trail or along this river. Okay, flip to the next one. So this was our river walk. You can see Wayne's victory dance there at the beginning. That's the person I thought was you, Nancy, but now that I look at it, I think you're right. That's not Nancy. I don't know who that is. It's behind Wayne in that picture.
Yeah, that's Barbara.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Barbara? Okay.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you it is not me.
Yeah.
I do know that for sure. I know for sure.
Yep. I don't know why I thought it was you. Whoever it is, they're obviously struggling to keep their pack out of the water. So this was, the water did occasionally get, at least waist high, maybe even chest high. You can see over on the left there that it's kind of cool though, hiking through these rocky, usually, reasonably shallow water. The middle inset picture is that water snake that I mentioned. So if you're super squeamish about that sort of thing, maybe not the best trip for you. It had a bit of that Humphrey Bogart African Queen feel to it, if you guys remember that movie, without the leeches though. I don't recall any leeches. So it's a fast moving stream. So I really doubt that's a problem. But it is beautiful. So this is some of the falls along the way. Elbow Falls, you can see kind of behind the group there. Jawbone Falls, which is probably the nicest sliding falls that, at least in Panthertown Valley that I've been to. That was a fun spot to spend some time and do some sliding. And then Wardens Falls, that's actually the pool at the foot of the falls that Amelia is jumping into off the rocks there. That was I think we ran into a Boy Scout troop or something the last time we were there. So that's a popular swimming spot. Okay. All right. So a few resources that you might want to check out if you're going to head down there. There's an organization called the Friends of Panthertown. Worthwhile organization to support. They do a lot of like trail maintenance and that sort of thing down in that area, but they also post alerts for bear activity, that sort of thing, and a lot of helpful information about the area. The map that I've been using here is available at this website. It's called The Guide's Guide to Panthertown. It's written by a guy who really either explored or actually probably created many of these trails even long before it became a Forest Service area. And there's more details on that Panthertown Valley tour hike. So that 10-mile loop that I was describing, this link has a whole lot more detail on that whole trip. Okay. All righty. So let's launch a last poll here. We're gonna just look for some feedback for how you guys think we did as far as being able to give you enough information where if you were interested, maybe you could do this trip yourself, or again, if you're not interested in that, we'd love to have you join us on one of these trips. And while people are completing the poll, just mention again that we will be posting this whole presentation to our website. So if you want to grab it and print it or something, you're welcome to do that. Just as a reminder, Earth Day, Earth Week, Earth Month is coming up here. And we're going to have a virtual Earth Day Jeopardy game Monday the 19th. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, it should be a fun time, and we're going to be giving away a few prizes, test your knowledge, and maybe win something. Okay. All right, appreciate that feedback. And go on to the, let me get rid of that. Go on to the next slide. Okay. So certainly, if you found this presentation or any of our other activities useful, we would love to have you join us. Some links here to becoming a member or making a donation. Most of our outings, all of our outings actually, are posted on Meetup. So really encourage you to become a member of the Meetup site, and or become a volunteer. And there's a link there to become a volunteer. And if you are an experienced outdoors person and are interested, we would love to have you consider becoming an outings leader with us. You can share your experience and your passion and your skill, make some good friends. We really do have a blast doing this. I mean, it's fun doing it virtually, but when we actually get outdoors, that's when it really becomes great. So if you're interested in that, we would absolutely love to have you join us. Okay. And again, just to mention some of our supporters, these are people that we consider partners that have been great assets in helping us put this series together. Roads, Rivers, and Trails, your independently owned outdoor outfitter in Milford. If you are not familiar with them, haven't checked them out, by all means get out there. It's just a great place, very knowledgeable staff that can help you with any kind of equipment needs. Summit Trek and Trail for adventure travel. Again, great outfit that does some wonderful trips, places down like Costa Rica. So check them out. And of course, the Miami group of Sierra Club. We would welcome your participation in any of our events. Certainly appreciate your joining us tonight. So I think that's probably it. What we can do is probably allow people to unmute if they prefer. But also, it looks like maybe we got a few questions in the chat. Let me scroll back here. Is it dog friendly? I don't know why it wouldn't be dog friendly. I'm not sure I've ever seen a lot of hikers with dogs there. Amelia or Wayne, do you recall?
I'm not recalling seeing any dogs there, to be honest with you.
I don't, but I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't be dog friendly. I mean, it's as friendly as any other Forest Service property, probably.
Yep.
Yep. So I wouldn't hesitate. We should probably ask Neil that question, but I wouldn't hesitate bringing a dog down there. Yeah.
One recommendation would be just to double check on their website to make sure they don't have any restrictions about dogs.
Okay.
That unless they list restrictions, then yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I don't have a dog, so I don't typically take a dog, but you're right. There could be restrictions. And I suppose, in areas that there are bear activity, I don't know if dog owners have to be particularly conscious of that. But again, it does have occasionally some bear activity. Okay, we got some thanks. Well, thank you guys. Frank asks, is there an upcoming group trip? Well, Frank, we wish we knew that. Yes, there will be. The big question is when. Right now, Sierra Club's just being very safety conscious, so all of our in-person events are shut down through at least July 4th. Hopefully, end of June, we'll get some updated guidance from Sierra Club as to when we can open up again. But we're certainly all hoping that maybe this summer, if not then by fall, we'll be offering some group trips again. So just really recommend, if you're interested, just join that meetup site. That's just the easiest way to get updates as to when we're going to be doing in-person trips again. Okay. Becky said she loves seeing this place again. Well, thank you, Becky. We'd love to go out there with you again sometime. Let's see. Connie asked, how long is the drive from Cincinnati? So the drive itself is about 6.5 hours. You know, we usually stop, well, we usually make a Starbucks stop, which is a tradition of some kind. But we usually stop for lunch for fast food. So, you know, we usually add about an hour onto that. So total trip length for us is usually more like 7.5 hours, which is a long way, a long drive. But this is one of those places that I think personally is really worth it. Okay. And if anyone does want to unmute and ask another question, you know, we're pretty much up on time, but we're willing to hang out as long as we have questions. Okay, well, I guess not. So just one last thank you. Thank you, Amelia, Wayne, thank you, Nancy, thank you, Brian, and thank you all the participants. Really appreciate your guys joining us tonight, and sincerely hope to see you guys all out there on the trail at some point and meet you in person. So take care, have a good night, and hopefully see you soon.